So that we took to Helenor, and it was, she was in clinically dead. We really believe he was a good man, he was a dedicated man. He'd been waiting for her for 4 days to come into his care. And this was blocked by a paediatrician who had an attitude that he knew best, and I'll transfer her when I think is right and proper. And unfortunately, it was too late when she got there. But unfortunately, in the system that operates, his priority became when allegiance to his colleagues comes before a child's life, there is something very serious in the system that a doctor cannot speak out and say at an inquest what truly happened.
Derek and Joan have run a continuous campaign to get all her body parts back from the medical profession and also find out exactly why she died.
And at the inquest, Dr. Trevor Heaven-Jones said that she was an alien child from birth and she was, you know, very poorly. So I think that this video will show you, and you make your own idea of whether this child was alien from birth. And that's the story we've learnt. Good doctors doing wonderful work in the National Health Service have to succumb to cover up for incompetent colleagues.
And in the medical records that we discovered, there is notes made that she was suffering from toxic poisoning from the large doses of Epilim that she was being prescribed. We had the threat made to us that if we didn't continue the administration of the Epilim, Helenor would be taken into the care of the local authority. So where we were administering a medication that eventually killed Helenor. That's a difficult one to live with, and it's taken us some time to. And they came out and said that Helenor had this very rare genetic condition, hyperammonemia. We took on the search and investigated and came out with the results that Epilim, one of the side effects of Epilim, is hyperammonemia. Hyperammonemia is a build-up of ammonia in the blood, which goes up into the brain and poisons the brain.
And the report goes on to read, nobody at fault or blame in the medical profession. The only person that they've blamed is Helenor. She had a liking for salad cream, butter, and cream crackers, and that was the beginning of a genetic disorder. Now, 90% of drugs given to babies are not licensed. 50% given to children in hospital are not licensed for children.
What's the situation now as to where, and I know this is difficult, but where all the parts of Helenor are now?
Well, we had the information at 5 to 12 on Friday morning of last week. The South Wales Police telephoned to say, I've seen an article in the press, you're having a second funeral. Well, I said, we owe it to our child. The first one was a shambolic, and we owe it to our child. So she said, I think it's important you know that there are 3 parts of her in Bristol, naming the doctors concerned. I was literally gobsmacked.
It'll never bring Helenor back, but why has today been so important to you both?
We are aware we won't bring Helenor back. We just feel we've got to keep on going to try and bring about change, that doctors will listen to parents regarding the whole experience they have when their child is poorly. We
were alone then, standing up and asking to be counted. Very few people were aware that doctors were removing organs without the parents' consent.
Good evening. A couple today held a funeral service for their daughter who died 27 years ago. After the tragedy of Helenor Bye's death, her parents faced another nightmare because years later they discovered that some of their child's body parts had been stored in hospitals without their knowledge. Joan and Derek Bye were determined to retrieve them. They never gave up their campaign. Today they achieved a major part of their goal.
When that story came out, that we felt some sort of relief from that, knowing that because they'd stolen children's organs to the extent they had, people would sit up now and listen. And the general public did, and so did the government, and that's why they had the inquiry.
Mary-Claire Kerry-Jones returned with them to the University Hospital of Wales in Cardiff.
A family united in grief, 27 years after the death of a loved one. Today, Helenor Bye's parents and brother collected tissue samples from the hospital where she died. Today would have been her 40th birthday.
My mother and father suffered up until now, and it's just continuing their suffering.
But South Wales police say Helenor's family already knew there were body parts at other hospitals and that they've even offered to collect them for the family.
Oh, that's news.
Oh, that's news.
For parents, it's prolonging the agony, but they say they will collect the other body parts themselves. And Helenor's family know today's service won't bring her back, but the second funeral has brought them some comfort. It was a chance for friends and family to remember a special little girl, that one day she will finally rest in peace. Mary-Claire Kerry-Jones, ITV Wales News.
Back in 1978,
We
we were alone then, standing up and asking to be counted. Very few people were aware that doctors were removing organs without the parents' consent. And this was going on hospitals without the knowledge of, I think, politicians and the general public. And it was when we were faced with trying to educate the general public that the doctor had removed our child's organs, people wouldn't believe us. It wasn't until the Bristol inquiry, when that story came out, that we felt some sort of relief from that, knowing that because they'd stolen children's organs to the extent they had, people would sit up now and listen. And the general public did, and so did the government, and that's why they had the inquiry.
We've dedicated our life, and I mean dedicated. We've dedicated our life to bring forward changes. And what we find is not respected in paediatrics, that the instinct of motherhood and parenthood is a God-given grace. And it should be respected. If a mother or a dad feels that the doctor's on the wrong track, they should be given a second opinion, and it is their right until they feel satisfied that all is best is being done for their child. But unfortunately, there are those that will do that, but are far too many of the others, and we refer to it as the BMA, and forgive the pun, but his bloody-minded arrogance rules the day. And I say that very sadly, that I call them mafia, because they do more good than bad, but unless we can weed out the bad, our loved ones will die, and we may never know why. I am not interested in litigation. I am not interested in, our daddy's not interested in money. We want the truth, and we want the system to be changed. We've been abused, we've been humiliated, we've been criminalised, all in the preservation where allegiance to colleagues is more important than a child's life. Firm to the bitter end that one day we will see change, and the instinct of motherhood and parenthood will be listened to. It's a God-given grace, and if we'd been listened to, our little one would be alive today.